Yeah, and that gives guys like us hope. When we see pros get double bogeys, we don't feel as bad about our 12 double bogeys, right?
Yeah.
Not you, obviously. Welcome to the OnPar Podcast. I'm your host, Drew DiAlberto. Thanks for being with us again. And I have, as always, my co-host and PGA professional, Mr. Sean Kicker.
Great to be here, Drew.
Thanks for coming. And today we're going to kind of go in a different direction than the first couple of episodes. We want to talk about what's coming up in the world of golf. So, Sean, you're the pro. Take it away, my friend.
Yeah, so in the previous episode, we talked a little bit about what was going on at Pebble Beach, and Justin Rose won that event after having not played for having not had a win in several years. But that's a Pro-Am. It's a long-lasting Pro-Am, and that's the PGA Tour's Pro-Am. But the First Tee has its own version of that with the Champions Tour, okay? It's in September, October area right there, and they select, I think it's 90-something kids that get to play in this event, and you're playing with a pro. Champions Tour pro, Freddie Couples, Ernie Els, Bernhard Langer, star-studded field, and you're playing as a First Tee kid in this Pro-Am. And
that's as good as it gets if you're a high school kid. I mean if you like golf at all, yeah.
You know, you talk about getting kids excited about being part of First Tee. If that's the carrot that you're dangling in front of them, it's kind of cool. And so our person that was selected from First Tee Broward last year, which is the first one that we've ever had selected to go play in this event, it's televised, is Ryan Shimoni. And you know Ryan quite well.
I met him through the 100-hole challenge. When we started shooting those interviews, he was one of the interviewees that led to this podcast. So I know Ryan, yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, he's raised a ton of money for First Tee. He's a really outstanding kid and really epitomizes exactly what we're doing with First Tee.
He's been in the top 5 fundraisers every year that he's done it, even when we had 60 golfers. You know, we had 60-year-olds golfing in this thing. He's 17 at the time, and he outraised most of them.
Yeah, he generally finishes top 10. He's moving his way up the leaderboard as he's getting older, and his mom rides around with him in the cart the entire day.
She had to drive him the first few years because he wasn't allowed to drive the
now
cart.
He's driving. Yeah. And, when he's done with 18 holes, they take the picture that says 18, 36, 54, 72, 90, and finally 100. And they're just broadcasting that live from the golf course and sending it out. Hey, send me $10, support First Tee, make a donation. And so it's really an effective method. And it really did lead us to, man, we should be doing this all the time. Let's do a podcast.
And there you go. So tell us about what's coming up in the world of golf, Sean.
Yeah, so this week is, as everyone knows, it's the biggest party in golf. The Waste Management Phoenix Open, February 9th through the 12th out in Arizona. It is just a giant party. They've got one of their holes is a stadium where it's just, you feel the energy, and it's just constantly loud. It's very similar to the following week after that, or 2 weeks after that, here in South Florida at the PGA National, we've got the Honda Classic, and they do that bear trap concept on the 17th hole there, but they don't draw anywhere near as many people. I mean, I wrote down some stats. The record-setting attendance, 700,000 people walking through that golf course at the Waste Management versus 200,000 is what we get here in South Florida. So, I mean, they're pumping some people. They got some serious golf fans out there in Arizona, I guess.
Why is it 3.5 times bigger? I mean, we're the capital of golf here, practically, right? I mean, and I know Arizona has great golf courses too, but how does that even work?
I can't even begin to tell you.
Nobody
I don't
knows.
know it,
Okay.
But it's got to be that party-like atmosphere, and you know, you've talked about how Liv is doing that as well, and
I haven't really paid much attention to Liv, and I know you haven't either, so that'll be something we have to get into on a future episode. But one of the things, I mean, it's been one of the most polarizing things, and there's all these feuds and, you know, T-Gate and all this other stuff that I put in the who the hell cares category, but people really care.
Yeah, it gives people something to talk about, I guess. And I've had my head buried in the sand when it comes to this, just because it's a touchy subject. I never really looked at it as a competing league, but they're looking at it as a competing league. And, you're dealing with suspensions, you're dealing with lawsuits. It's not pretty, and it's not something that I like to get involved with. The PGA Tour are huge supporters financially of First Tee. So a lot of our funding will come from these events. But the PGA Tour gives back hundreds of millions of dollars every single season to local charities, and First Tee is one of the biggest ones that they have. And so Liv's not doing that.
Well, I mean, being a longtime PGA professional and a longtime First Tee coach, and now the director of operations for Broward, of course you're going to be partial to a company that's funding the company you're so passionate about, the nonprofit you're so passionate about.
You and I are free enterprise market guys, right? I'm never going to want to squash someone that does competition. I always feel like you'd just be better, okay? And that's what Liv's trying to do right now. They're trying to put a better product out there, a more modern product. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have any interest in it. I don't have any interest in watching league play with 4 teams, 4-player teams that are essentially made up of an A player, a B player, a C player, and a D player. I mean, they have D players.
Yeah, which is how Rich Rogers told me to structure a charity event.
Sure,
a charity event tournament back when I started playing golf. So I get it.
It's not on television, and we'll have a future episode where we really dive into all of why it's so controversial. But I have had very little interest in watching it just because of what it is, and it's not on television.
Yeah, I hear you. And it will be, but that's another story for a different show.
No doubt. Let's talk about the Honda Classic coming up.
Tell me about it. I've been to the Honda Classic. I've been to the Bear Trap. I've been a guest in a suite before. That's a fun event. And that was the only golf tournament I had been to. That was the first one.
It's
4
or
5
venue.
years ago.
Absolutely great venue. Spectacular golf course. They make everything easy. The parking, getting in there, taking the bus. It's very, very, fan-friendly. And we're going to be at the First Tee is going to be there. There's going to be a junior golf clinic. So kids that are under 18 on February 21st at 3 p.m. You're welcome to attend. And that's going to be at the PGA National in Palm Beach Gardens.
That's on a Wednesday.
Yes, that's on a Wednesday. I'm also a Pace of Play ambassador. So the South Florida PGA, as PGA professionals, we're going to be inside the ropes with these groups in the Pro-Am. We're not playing, but we're just there as what they call Pace of Play ambassadors. But it's always a cool experience being inside the ropes versus outside the ropes.
So what is a Pace of Play ambassador?
We're just there for goodwill. I mean, we're gonna.
So you're a fan that day.
We're gonna tell Rory, hey Rory, you want to pick it up, buddy? We're falling 4 minutes behind the pace of play. Like really? No. And we've never had. And the pace. Let me tell you something. The pace of play in this thing is brutal.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I did it a couple of years ago, and I mean, we played the first 9 in 3 hours and 10 minutes.
Oh wow.
I mean, it was. You got these guys that are paying a lot of money. I forget what the figure is, but it's tens of thousands of dollars for your foursome to play in it, and it's all corporate sponsors.
Right on.
And this is where all that money goes to charity as well.
So they're taking their sweet time and making sure that every blade of grass on the green rolls the way they want it, or at least they think it will. And
no doubt.
Interesting.
And most people don't know this, but it's mandatory that the PGA Tour players have to play in this.
Okay.
And so in this particular event, they kind of get a little bit off the hook, but they don't have to play all 18 holes. They played 9. And so there's enough pros, the field is big enough that you're going to play 9 holes with one pro, and then you're going to make the turn, there's going to be another guy waiting there, so you're not playing a full 18 holes with the same pro. But the pros get paid to play in that event, and the figure is right around $1,500. I've heard that just goes directly to the caddy.
Got it.
That's You're going to get that caddy money, so
Okay.
you're guaranteed. And so by playing it just takes care of the caddy's expenses for the week.
So do any of the pros say, screw it, I'm going to play all 18 because it's practice, or is
Well,
that
there's practice
not...
rounds, but this
Well,
is
of course,
specific,
but more, like Michael Jordan was notorious, and Kobe Bryant and those guys were notorious for practicing before everybody else and after everybody else. So, we'll use the obvious example. Does Tiger Woods play 18 in that because he's just, and he's known for the same thing as practicing.
Well, on that particular day, the golf course is loaded with, it's full the entire day. And they do a morning tee times, and then there's another afternoon wave. So you're teeing off all day. There's no place for you to play. And so if you've already got one pro that's scheduled for the front nine, another one for the back nine, you're done for the day. You're going to go to the range. It's just a day that the pros know that they're not going to play 18 holes. Now, most tour events, it is 18 holes. But it's hard to concentrate. You got 4 guys that some of them can't even break 100. But they paid their entry fee, and you're with them. And the pros are really, really gracious. I mean, I've played in several of these pro-ams. They're just as down-to-earth and wonderful human beings, and they're always going to try and help you. I was always amazed. I played with Kirk Triplett last year in the TimberTech Championship Pro-Am, the senior tour event. He was just so gracious and literally gave a tip to every single person in our group, including myself.
What tip did he give you?
But, as I've gotten older, my swing has gotten shorter, and I tend to have the same downswing plane with my hands as my club. All right, and so, the better players are going to have a wider arc going back and a little bit sharper angle coming down into the ball, and that just gives just a little bit better lag and a little bit more club head speed. I don't do that anymore, so I'm only hitting the ball 240, 250. Kirk's older than I am. Kirk's probably pushing 60, bombing at 30 yards past me. Granted, he's 6'3", and
probably does yoga and stretching exercises and the stuff that you're not
that
doing,
kind of stuff.
right?
I play once a week.
Yeah. Okay. And how about the world rankings of golfers? Let's get into that a little bit. What does that actually mean? Who do you like in some of these tournaments, and why? Who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win?
It's become so confusing, and there's so many young studs out there these days that it's hard for me to keep up with who's out there now, because there's 100 guys that are in the top 100 rankings. I've never even heard of them. Okay, they're all super athletic. They're all really, really, really good. And even the big names that are out there right now, they're getting older. And when I say older, they're in their 30s. These kids are 18, 19, 20, 21, just bombing the ball 300 yards out there. So the world rankings are based upon where you're finishing every week, from week to week to week, and it adjusts. But we're going to be seeing a whole lot of new names, and especially with as many players that jumped over to LIV that did, is those household names, the Phil Mickelsons, the Bubba Watsons, the Dennis Johnsons, the Johnsons of the world. There's not as many of those names on the PGA Tour now, so we're going to be experiencing new names.
Is it the same in the LPGA, or is it stacked at the top?
The LPGA is the world rankings work the same for that as they do for the PGA Tour. Okay,
but I mean, is it the same way where it's a bunch of young guns that anybody can win, or is it the same ladies winning every time?
The LPGA Tour historically is a lot like what the PGA Tour once was before there was 1,000 people that could play at the professional level, where it's 200-300. Of the top female players, but there's always, just like in all of life, there's that top 1%. They're always there at the top.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk a little bit about the golf courses locally that, we talked about one up at PGA, obviously a very nice course if pros are playing.
That's one of the best. It really is.
So, let's take Broward County and Palm Beach County and separate them. Let's take public and private and separate them.
That's not a fair fight.
Palm Beach kills us, I know. But so let's...
you and I stepping in the ring with Mike Tyson in his prime. It ain't happening.
So let's take, private courses in Palm Beach County. what are like the top 3 or 4 that you would, or 5, or I know there's a million of them, but
there's literally too many to count.
Well, in Broward, it's not like that, right? There's 5 at the top or so, and then there's everything else.
3 at the top.
So give us the 3 in. If we could have a friend at any golf course with a membership, where do we want to play? First, second, and third.
Yeah, first of all, the one that you just can't get on. Like, as a PGA professional, most pros, I know all of who they are. The guys that are running those golf courses. I play in tournaments with them. I see them at our meetings. I'm the secretary of the Southern Chapter for the South Florida PGA, which is Dade and Broward County pros. There's about 200 of them. And most of the time, I can pick up the phone and say, hey, John, can I get a group out there? And the answer almost all the time is yes, except for this time of year. The one that you cannot get on, I don't care who you are, without a member in Broward County is Adios Golf Club.
I've heard that from you and others, of course. So that's number 1.
Yeah, you don't even know that it's there. It's right along, if you're traveling on the Turnpike, right before you hit Palm Beach County line, there's that canal there that says, welcome to Palm Beach County, or if you're coming from the south going north, welcome to Broward County. It's just west of the Turnpike, and it is spectacular.
And it's still men only there, correct?
Men only. They won't even allow a female delivery person to show up on property there.
Okay.
So.
All right, so we can't get in Adios. Where do we go?
So number 2, and probably that might even be better conditions, is Coral Ridge Country Club.
Okay.
Coral Ridge is absolutely spectacular. It's an older club, closer to the ocean. Conditions are like playing PGA Tour conditions.
I have
every
played
day.
there before I got invited by someone who was a member at Parkland that had the reciprocal there when they were doing some stuff at Parkland.
So I might have told you this story, and it ties in with some of the other private facilities like Grand Oaks. Grand Oaks is another great facility. It's got the best practice facilities maybe of any place in South Florida.
Yeah.
The driving range, the short game areas.
Trees everywhere.
Oh, and there's not a palm tree on that golf course. It's all oak trees. But I was elected into membership of the PGA with who was then the president of the South Florida PGA section, J.J. Selke. J.J. Selke was the head golf professional at Rolling Hills Country Club, which Wayne Huizinga then bought and took over and became Grand Oaks. J.J. Selke is the general manager of Coral Ridge Country Club, and Scott Fox is the director of golf. Patrick Smith just took over as head golf professional. The staff there is incredible. I mean, you just walk on there and you just feel like royalty.
Very cool. And then you talked about another high-end super place that they're building that's going to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars to even like be on the waiting list. What's the name of that one?
So the Diplomat, the old Diplomat, which is over by Gulfstream Park in the southeastern portion of Broward County. The Diplomat was a great facility, as a resort course. Short, small. About 2019, SLS Hotels bought that property, and they hired Greg Norman, of all people, to redo the golf course. So they redid the golf course, moved some things around. It was absolutely pristine, and then COVID hit. And so they kept that golf course maintained, and for 2 years. Somebody bought it and went ultra private with it, and take a guess what the initiation fee is.
I think it's upwards of $500,000, right?
It's north of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 700,000 plus, and then
That's a big check.
and that's the golf course isn't even open. They have over 100 members already. David Armitage, who's a master PGA professional, is the director of golf operations. Great guy. He tells me there's over 100 members. And it's not going to open until October.
So own a golf course when you grow up, kids. There you have it. So where do the peons like me that don't have a membership and don't have $700,000, like where do we go? What's the first 2 or 3 golf courses in Broward? And then we'll do Palm Beach, another show because it's a longer show.
We do a whole show just on that. We don't have time for it.
Right, so just in Broward. We live in Broward. We're Broward guys. I grew up here. Yeah. Which golf course? If I'm going to play on Saturday with my friends, which golf course do I go to?
Depends on how difficult a golf course you want to play.
Okay.
Because if you want to play a great golf course, But a really difficult golf course, there's two that really come to mind that stand out. TPC Eagle Trace Golf Club, okay, in Coral Springs. And then in Hollywood, you've got Emerald Hills.
Okay.
And
very long course, longest in the country, I believe.
From the green tees,
it's a mile.
Crazy.
It's a mile on every hole.
But nobody plays those tees.
Right.
And there's some holes that the trees have grown to where you have about an 18-inch window that you got to drive 350 yards just to get to the fairway. It's kind of crazy.
That doesn't sound fair.
But those are two. Deer Creek is another one. Jacaranda has 36 holes of really spectacular golf. Plantation Preserve is another one. So those are top of the food chain as far as public golf courses that you can play in Broward County.
Okay. Any other... Oh, you know what? It's time for the Sean's Pro Tip of the Week. So let's go do that one now.
Very good. So we talked a little bit about how to practice last lesson, right? And how much of you should be doing with each club and so on and so forth, where 90% of it should be putting. The other thing is if in between those practices, if you're going out to practice before a round of golf, play the course on the range, okay? And what I mean by that is you play each hole. 1, 2, 3. You know what the scorecard says, so you step up on the practice range and you hit that tee shot, visualizing, well, there's a bunker here, there's trees here, there's water there, and play that shot. If you don't hit that shot, continue to practice until you know that you've hit that shot, so that when you get up to the first hole, it's automatic.
Fairway.
It's like
you're thinking fairway, straight down the middle fairway. Gotcha.
You're not thinking, you know.
It happens.
Yes, okay. And it's, we're going to talk a lot about that in future episodes, about how it just happens. But have a plan. Know what your yardages are. So if you know how far you hit the ball off the tee, know how much space is left, how much distance you have between there and the green, and play the whole golf course like that. Jack Nicklaus he was so good in majors, was he had a game plan. He knew what club he was going to hit off of every tee. He knew what his approach shot was going to be. He even knew where on the green he wanted to be, okay? That's what made him so good. So practice each of those, and then the other thing is par threes, okay? Look at the scorecard and figure out what those par threes are and hit several shots with that particular club, really honing it into a very specific target, okay? That's going to help you when you get out there. And the interesting thing, when you're talking about par threes, on a side note, is those are the hardest holes for pros. They happen to also be the easiest holes for most recreational players, right? The easiest holes for the pros are the par fives.
Right, because they can hit a 350 off the tee straight down the pipe.
Yeah, I mean, the tour average on a par 5 is 4.3. It's almost a full stroke under par. So they're making birdies, okay? Tour average on a par 3 is slightly over par.
So how does that even compute? Because, I mean, these guys are the best in the world. Their short games are better than anybody.
Yep.
Why aren't they getting birdies and pars on every par 3?
Well, they make bogeys. I mean, they do.
I know.
You miss a green, and oftentimes the par 3 courses, the par 3 holes, they're more penal. Okay, so
okay,
you miss a green, you're making bogey. You might make double bogey.
Yeah, and that gives guys like us hope. When we see pros get double bogeys, we don't feel as bad about our 12 double bogeys, right?
Yeah.
Not you, obviously, but. So another segment we want to add on now is, what does Drew want to know? This is kind of the, what does the amateur want to know from the pro? And one thing that I've heard is, some people think they're better after a few drinks, or smoking a joint, or hitting a vape pen, or smoking a cigar or cigarettes, and other people are like, I'm not doing any of that, and pros don't do anything. Well, John Daly's a separate, right? So what's your take on that whole thing as far as anybody goes?
I've never been able to put anything in my body other than water or a sports drink or food.
Protein bar.
If I start drinking alcohol, I quickly become useless.
Okay.
Right? Like, it's different. Now, if I'm playing billiards, I'm playing pool.
Okay.
Or if I'm shooting, throwing darts, Yeah, a couple of cocktails. It happens, but with golf, I just have never been able to do it. And playing professional golf younger in my career, I played with guys like John Daly, and I watched that man drink ungodly amounts of alcohol and partake in a few
joints and
chain smoke and everything else. But that's him.
So it's each person is different, or those guys are like like John Daly's an anomaly, right? Like most people couldn't do that and hit the ball like he does and putt like he does.
Yeah, but there's a surprising more than just him that partake on a regular basis. That I'm not going to bring it up here, but
at the high level,
I was
the
surprised.
PGA level.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised to learn that because I couldn't fathom it. Couldn't fathom it.
Well, I appreciate you, Sean, as always. That's kind of going to wrap us up here on the OnPar Podcast. We want to take one more minute and thank our sponsors. Thank you to VoiceBox PCS in Fort Lauderdale for hosting us, as always. And then Steady Returns, as 10,000 Americans turn 70 every single day over the next decade. Our country will be experiencing a healthcare shortage and an unavoidable crisis. At Steady Returns, we have multiple investment portfolio strategies to choose from that focus on turning this crisis into an opportunity to grow your wealth. Are you looking for a new investment portfolio manager? Do you want steady returns? Set your appointment with Chris Burr at steady-returns.com. And last but certainly not least, Megacore CBD. Not all CBD products are created equal. Megacore CBD products are safe, effective, fast-acting, and organic. Megacore products are designed for your active lifestyle by providing natural relief from your everyday stress. If you don't have the pain stick in your golf bag, I say it every single week, you are making a huge mistake. I can't tell you how many people I've helped on the golf course finish their round by giving them a pain stick. So go to megacorecbd.com and buy it. Use promo code MEGA10 for 10% off your first order.